All right, this is a super interesting story and a very different sort of military-related story than what many of us have become accustomed to. Yesterday, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, was asked questions by Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz about the U.S. military examining critical race theory. Now, the term examining is really the appropriate term. Understanding Marxian economics doesn't make you a Marxist. And much the same way, examining critical race theory doesn't make you someone who guides their philosophy or runs a military on the basis of critical race theory, although you may learn something that's relevant or furthers your understanding, or maybe not. But the point is, simply understanding something, examining it, learning about it, doesn't actually dictate your political philosophy. And Matt Gaetz and others were just getting after General Mark Milley, and he delivered a concise and very astute explanation of why, I mean, forget about just critical race theory. There's a bigger issue here, which is the right. He doesn't say the right, but I've been pointing out the right seems to fail to understand the value of diverse knowledge for its own sake, rather than necessarily as a tool of indoctrination. So let's take a look at this clip. This is General Mark Milley. Super, super interesting stuff. You'll see the camera, if you're watching, go to Matt Gaetz at one point, who's just sort of shaking his head, and he doesn't like it, but he seems to know he's being schooled right now. Take a look.
Mr. Chair, and thank you, gentlemen, for joining us today. I know my time is very precious, but I would like to yield some of my time to General Milley because I know that he had some comments that he wanted to make when Representative Gaetz was talking, as well as Mr. Waltz, about a similar subject of the stand down and race theory. Would you like a minute or so to comment on that? Do you remember what your line of questioning or thought was there?
Sure. First of all, on the issue of critical race theory, et cetera, I'll obviously have to get much smarter on whatever the theory is. But I do think it's important, actually, for those of us in uniform to be open-minded and be widely read. And the United States Military Academy is a university. And it is important that we train and we understand, and I want to understand white rage. And
understand what he's pointing out here, right? The military trains for many contingencies which never happen. The military trains to understand circumstances which may be good, bad, neutral, or irrelevant, because that's what you do. You prepare, you learn, you understand. Similarly, when you apply that and say, hey, this is a university, you learn things in university from math. I mean, listen, have I used calculus 2 in my work life? No. But understanding it and going through it has been extraordinarily valuable in terms of now I understand how do we even learn math at that level, which is not a particularly high level, but I'm not bragging, but I'm just saying I'm not using it, but it's still useful. And much the same way, we should be seeing some of these ideologies and theories as well.
Wait, and
that's an academic. It's the most basic thing, right? About what learning is.
I want to understand it. So, what is it that caused thousands of people to assault this building and try to overturn the Constitution of the United States of America? What caused that?
Right.
I want to find that out. I want to maintain an open mind here, and I do want to analyze it. It's important that we understand that because our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Guardians, they come from the American people. So it is important.
By the way, Guardians, that's the Space Force Trump thing. He has to say it. It sounds so weird to hear it.
That the leaders now and in the future do understand it. I've read Mao Zedong. I've read Karl Marx. I've read Lenin. That doesn't make me a communist.
This is literally the example I gave earlier in the show. When I was at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, one of the few then economics programs which seriously taught what the class was Marxian economics with the late Stephen Resnick, a co-author with Richard Wolff in many articles and even books, I believe. It didn't turn me into a Marxist, but I learned what is the theory, what is the genesis. We read Marx. There was nothing dangerous going on. It's called being informed. And to hear Mark Milley say it, I have to tell you, is fantastic.
So what is wrong with understanding, having some situational understanding about the country for which we are here to defend? And I personally find it offensive that we are accusing the United States military, our general officers, our commissioned, non-commissioned officers, of being, quote, woke or something else because we're studying some theories that are out there. That was started at Harvard Law School years ago, and it proposed that there were laws in the United States, antebellum laws prior to the Civil War, that led to a power differential with African Americans that were 3/4 of a human.
By the way, the general knows much more about all of these topics than Matt Gaetz, but that probably doesn't come as a surprise to anybody.
Being when this country was formed. And then we had a Civil War and Emancipation Proclamation to change it. And we brought it up to the Civil Rights Act in 1964. It took another 100 years to change that. So look it, I do want to know. And I respect your service, and you and I are both Green Berets, but I want to know. And it matters.
By the way, it's not Matt Gaetz that's the Green Beret. It's a different congressman who's there.
Military and the discipline and cohesion of this military. And I thank you for the opportunity to make a comment on that.
Thank you, General.
So the general is completely right. This is just called thinking. This is called being a student of things. This is called learning, understanding, and it makes absolute perfect sense that this would be the perspective that an entity like the military would take. And it doesn't mean the military becomes woke in the negative sense of the term. Now, just to give you one reaction to this, which is so funny. After this last night, Laura Ingraham on Fox News responded to this, and she said the reason this happened is because of Democrats and the military-industrial complex. She's like a trapeze artist. She's a contortionist. I don't know how this is what she comes up with, but let's listen.
The active duty servicemen and women about that, sir. Now, somehow I don't think General Milley would ever speak in this dismissive tone that he took today to his Chinese counterparts. Not the way he spoke to Congressman Waltz, who questioned him.
What?
I have a question for the general. Why would anyone risk his or her life for a country that's systemically racist, one that brutalizes minorities?
This is what you call black and white thinking. Let's assume for a second that it wasn't just that Mark Milley said, let's understand critical race theory. Imagine for a second that what Mark Milley said was, the military will now see critical race theory as its guiding explanation and system for understanding the country. That's not what he said, but imagine that Mark Milley went as far as to say that. Now Laura Ingraham says, why would anyone be in the military to defend a country that's structurally racist? Well, you understand, for those who subscribe to critical race theory, presumably the next step is, how do we fix it? And the same or similar motivation that would lead someone, if they join the military for the right reasons, which is, well, we can argue about whether the military is used in this way, but if you join not to go and kill people, as some do, but most don't, if you join the military to try to make the country better, and if you believe critical race theory, you would then want to change things to make the country better. In both cases, you're trying to make the country better. So this black and white thinking of, if there's any systemic racism, then you wouldn't even be in the military because you'd not want to defend a country that's systemically racist. It's just gutter black and white thinking.
Why would any country respect us or follow our lead if that's who we are? Those are some of the questions he should probably think about before he touts the value of teaching far-left Marxist racist ideology to our troops.
And again, all he touted was, we want to understand what are the conversations that are happening and what are the arguments being made. He never said, let's become a woke critical race theory military. Had he said that, it would be a different discussion.
The fact is, Milley has made his choice. And he's chosen to indulge the radical whims of Democrats. He'll do everything they tell him as long as they keep the military-industrial complex flush with cash.
And of course, that's just so silly, given that, military-industrial complex is almost as big of an issue in terms of blind support from Democrats than from Republicans. A little bit less. You do hear some Democrats say, we've got to pare this down. So for Laura Ingraham now to say, well, this is all happening, he's taking a left perspective because of Democrats funneling money into the military-industrial complex. Republicans do far more of it. So it makes no sense one way or the other, and very interesting to see the statements by General Mark Milley. One of our sponsors is Rise, the science-based app that makes it easy to improve your sleep and your daily energy. Rise helps you figure out what are your sleep needs, helps you achieve your best possible sleep through two core principles of sleep science: the idea of sleep debt, meaning how much sleep you owe your body, and circadian rhythms dictating your energy levels. Each morning, the Rise app tells you how long you'll be groggy, what your energy peaks will be during the day, when you should start winding down for bed for optimal sleep. I've been using the app on my phone every day for a while now, and I started noticing improved sleep and energy within just a few nights, and it's giving me a really good understanding of the relationship between my sleep and when I'm sleeping and my daytime energy. My audience can try Rise for free for a whole week by going to risescience.com/Pakman. The link is underneath this video.